Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. I just want to talk about transiting Neptune conjunct transiting Mercury, which is really at its peak today and tomorrow, and has been building up for the last few days. And I've had some pretty bizarre experiences myself just with this energy. And of course, it's really amplified because we are still in the full moon phase, the full moon in Libra that we had a couple of days ago. So the full moon phase actually lasts for about 3.5 days. So even though the full moon was on the 28th, 29th of March, the energy of that is really active for around about 3.5 days. So we're still within that at the moment and sort of heading towards the end of that energy. But as we know, full moons generally tend to highlight things for better or for worse. So whatever is there that needs to be seen will be seen with the full moon. And as I spoke about the full moon in Libra, because it's in Libra, of course, it highlights, generally speaking, just as a baseline, because it's in Libra, it highlights matters that in our life that are imbalanced or that require more balance. So things that are perhaps not so pleasant, not so comfortable, we're not so happy about, these things are going to be seen. The spotlight is going to be put on them. So there's, a pretty intense energy in the air at the moment, even though the archetype of Libra is not an intense energy per se, but full moons always tend to, really highlight things. I was sitting outside somewhere last night with a family member, and we were just having a bite to eat, and some random person just decided to sit next to us who appeared to be intoxicated. Pisces, Neptune, and he was babbling on, waffling, talking gibberish, not making any sense at all. It was a very disjointed dialogue. It was distorted. It made no sense. He was jumping from one thing to the next. It was just a really bizarre moment, and it was very much a Mercury Neptune in Pisces moment. I didn't know if he was being honest or sincere, or it was just really weird. But that was just a very funny example that I experienced last night. And then this morning when I woke up, I've had a few messages, and I've read a few posts on social media, and just kind of getting a sense of people's experience at the present moment, coming out of the full moon in Libra and the conjunction between Mercury and Neptune closing in, which is pretty much now. And I pulled out a card just before I started. So you can see the card there. It's the Three of Wands, right? And it's from, I've just forgotten the name of this deck. It was gifted to me. You know who you are who gifted this to me. It's a beautiful deck. But anyway, Three of Wands, just very briefly, my understanding is that it's really about planning, right? It's about getting clear, doing your research. It's really about being committed to where you are at the moment with your ideas, perhaps, or things that you are planning on looking into, staying committed to that, and really sort of appreciating the current relationships and connections that you have in play at the moment that perhaps are supporting or fostering your path in some kind of way, but not taking things for granted, and really getting clear on what you're trying to project ahead forward in time in terms of what you're trying to create for yourself. That could be study, that could be a job, that could be just different things that you're planning for yourself. So I found it really interesting that this card came up, because this is saying to us that you need to be clear about your plans moving forward. And a Mercury Neptune conjunction is everything but that. It's not clear at all. In fact, it's a very, very confusing, chaotic energy from a mental perspective. Of course, it has really great things about it as well. It evokes and stimulates the poet, the mystic, the artist, the creative writer, and the imagination, right, is incredibly rich. So from that more esoteric or holistic or creative perspective, there's a lot of advantage here with the Mercury Neptune conjunction. But when it comes to the everyday, mundane, ego world of reality, there can be incredible distortion and confusion in terms of our communication, whether it's what we are communicating to somebody or whether it is the information we are receiving from somebody else. It can be so disjointed. I'll just read you what Rob Hand says in one of his books. He says that Mercury Neptune aspects stimulate imagination, inspiration, um, possibility of confusion, muddled or irrational thinking, nervous weakness or exhaustion. And nervous weakness or exhaustion is really, it corresponds to Mercury, right? Because Mercury stimulates that nervous energy in the body. You know, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo as well, right? So it's got to do with the central nervous systems in the body. So there can be this overactive sort of nervous energy that derives from a sense of confusion as well. Neptune, concerned with spiritual ideas and ideals, the need to transcend ordinary thought patterns, because Mercury corresponds to our everyday linear left brain, just how we connect the dots, how we communicate, how we receive information. And Neptune is the body that transcends all things. It's a transcendental planetary body or energy, and it's so not of this earth. So bringing those two together, and Mercury in the sign of Pisces as well, it's a double signature, it's a double-edged sword. And it is very, very challenging, perhaps, when we are trying to be clear about certain things in our life at the moment. But just remember that this is a transit that's really only in play for a few days, really, at most. But nevertheless, it's quite heightened because we're in a full moon phase, like I said. And when I saw this card, because I literally just pulled it up just before I started recording, I asked for a message to come through the cards for us as well, just to add to this little session. This is going to be a very quick video, probably one of my shortest. And, clarity on your plans moving forward. And yet Mercury Neptune conjunction in Pisces, as I said, is anything but clear. And it just reminded me of one of the myths for Pisces, which is the myth of the typhon or typhoon, however you want to pronounce it, which is that that very scary looking monster who pretty much scared everyone, on the earth plane. And it was Venus and Eros who are part of this myth, who, when they were confronted by the typhoon, they were terrified. And so in order to escape, which is Pisces, and get away from the chaos and the fear and the craziness of what was happening on the earth, they transformed themselves into fish, right? And hence the constellation of Pisces came about. So Venus and Eros transformed into fish. They took a dive into the water, and they were in the water as two fish now, bound together by cords. Their tails were sort of tied together, and that's a symbolism of it's a couple of different things. It's the split, the two different types of components of the Pisces, one being in touch with the earthly reality and one being just totally connected to the ethereal realm or the astral realm or the spiritual realm, and then so there's this dilemma and conflict often, in the archetype of Pisces, whether it's a Pisces energy where we are going through ourselves, or whether it's Pisces energies in our own chart where we feel quite torn, with the reality before us and the desire to escape to something so much more beautiful and peaceful. And that's what Eros and Venus did. They wanted to escape the chaos and craziness of the reality at the time. And when they were under the water, they could just hear this muffled sound, which was of the typhoon or typhon, that was, sort of enraged or angry, or, wanting to cause harm and so forth, right? And so as they're under the water and they are looking sort of through the water, if you like, and they can just hear all these muffled sounds. And that's a very symbolic metaphor for the archetype of Pisces, right? So what we're hearing can sometimes sound so muffled, or what we're receiving. And there's two sides to that. One side is that, of course, it can be that there is some type of communication that's going on that's just totally distorted, which was my experience last night with a complete random stranger. There was no reason for that person to approach me and communicate with me. I didn't know him or anything like that, but he did. And that's, he really reminded me of that myth. And he was a bit like the ugly sort of monster as well. And I just wanted to kind of withdraw from that. And at the same time, I was trying to be empathetic and sensitive because he seemed so lost. He seemed like a really lost soul. The point is that you can be in conversation at the moment, or receiving information that may just be so muffled and distorted and confusing. And the card Three of Wands is reminding us, just get clear and do your research, with your plans moving forward. Don't sort of take advantage that you know everything that you need to know. Take the appropriate steps, right? Let me just bring up the chart as well, because that kind of prompts some visuals for us. And just a few more comments, and then I will leave it here for today. So there's the full moon in Libra. Okay, so it's 27 degrees at the moment, so it's well and truly past the exact opposition to the sun, of course, because that occurred a couple of days ago. But like I said, the full moon phase lasts for about 3.5 days. Okay, every phase does, as a matter of fact. So we're still in a full moon phase at the moment. It's the 30th of March in the southern hemisphere, and it will be the 29th for you guys, depending on when you watch this. So you can see there's the Mercury Neptune conjunction in Pisces, which is virtually exact at the moment. And so that's been building up the last few days, and it's really at its peak today, and it will be at its peak tomorrow. I'll just fast forward this chart till tomorrow. There it is there. It's only moved 1 degree away from Neptune, so still quite active. If we continue to proceed forward, you will see that Mercury starts to get further away, but it's still within range, within orb. So realistically, before Mercury goes into Aries, which is around about here, around about the 4th of April, we've still got about 4 days of this Mercury Neptune lurking around. And, at best, it can be very inspirational on a number of different levels, whether that's artistically, creatively, or just in your own silent, meditative sort of practices and things like that. It can also be a very powerful time for receptive antennas to be opened up, mental receptors to receive information, data, pictures, images, things that can help you make further connections to things that you've been studying or learning on or working on. It won't become clear right now. It'll probably become clear as Mercury shifts into Aries, but it is an energy that can create confusion and chaos. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which is important, is that frequently a Mercury Neptune aspect appears to create what seems to come across as deception. Now, sometimes that deception can seem like it's deliberate, and sometimes it is, and often it's not deliberate. Okay, it's a state of communication that cannot be channeled through the left linear logical rational brain. So it transmits in such a distorted way that really makes no sense. And sometimes that information that's received, the way you are receiving it in your own mind, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't sound truthful, or it doesn't sound logical. And so you may have this perception or judgment that that person is being dishonest. And that may very well be the case. But it may also be that the distortion has created such a blur, such a fog, that it's very difficult to know what's true, what's real, and what isn't. So when it comes to making some logical, rational decisions at the moment, it's probably best to kind of hold off a little bit and just let this energy pass by as it will. As I said, it's very good for the psychic mind, the intuitive mind, working creatively and things like that. But miscommunications and distorted communications are also very likely at this time. Very sensitive and empathetic type of energy as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, of course, let me just go back to here, the 30th of March. So the other energy that's really heightened at the moment with this full moon, of course, is the Sun Chiron conjunction, and of course the Sun Venus conjunction, which is the evening Aries Venus star point that Ariel and myself just spoke about recently. Thank you for all your appreciation and feedback on that video that Ariel and myself put together. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it, by the way, and there'll be more to come as well. That was just such a beautiful moment in time, and I'll be really looking forward to bringing more to you guys about that with Ariel and also just on my own as well. So the Sun Venus conjunction, as you can see, is still very close. The Sun is 9, Venus is at 10, so we still have this beautiful frequency of Sun Venus, which is, it's that's the energy of love, right? It's the radiance of love, the cosmic heartbeat, as Ariel calls it. The Chiron is there as well, though. So I've heard some people make some comments on social media. Some people that I know are having their Chiron return. Because Chiron is moving direct at the moment, it's not going retrograde till later in the year. It's a pretty confronting energy, I think. It's pretty raw. When planets are moving direct, they seem to be and they feel to be more sort of dynamic and active and in your face, as it were, right? So there's just that the energy just feels like it's literally out there. You can see it all around you, as it were. And also, it's bringing up a lot of shadow sort of aspects for people as well. The Chiron in Aries. Now, some of you are having a Chiron return. Some of you might be having that Chiron, transiting opposite your sun or square your sun. Those aspects are going to be very, very important. But just the Sun Chiron Venus triple conjunction there is very important because it was all bound up in this full moon energy, which is just totally amplified for about a 3.5 day period. So, one would think full moon in Libra, it's all about love, beauty, harmony, balance, and art and relationships and, the heart and things like that. And it is to a large extent, but it is also the highlighting of what's really imbalanced in your life at the moment. And whilst the moon or the full moon, it's just a 2 or 3 day energy that's around, it's going to connect to deeper things that are going on in your chart. That the moon is like a timer. It's literally like this little clock. Pretty much everything is a timer in the chart anyway, but the moon is literally like this timer that just clicks things over, and it happens fairly quickly, as we know, because the moon circles the zodiac right in a month, so things are moving quite rapidly. But when we get the full moon, things just get really amplified, and so there's this amplification at the moment of a lot of imbalances that we could be encountering, that we need to address, that we need to pay attention to. So it's a very positive thing from that level. But the main thing to watch at the present moment and moving forward over the next few days is this Mercury Neptune conjunction, because you may be in dialogue with certain individuals, whether that's personally or professionally, and the wires can get really crossed, and there can be presumptions and assumptions made that are not based on actual fact and truth. So you kind of really need to watch that, because sometimes we can make a decision or make a comment or say something to somebody that we will shortly later sort of regret, because we didn't have our facts right, and vice versa. So it is something to be mindful of and watch, and especially if you're in the in a position where you may need to sign a contract or something like that. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't sign a contract if that's something that you need to be doing at the moment, but I would certainly be having a second and third person look over that contract for you as well. And just make sure that you get like a second and third opinion, because it is so easy to be blindsided by this particular frequency, Mercury, Neptune. So blindsided and so misguided relative to facts, details, information, connecting the dots. And that can prove to be very difficult later on if it's something that's quite a significant matter. So there's some food for thought. And also, as what just bear with me while I try and find that page again. Irrational thinking, muddled or irrational thinking, is a very common feature as well of this Mercury Neptune. Nervous weakness or exhaustion, right? So those are just very good points to kind of consider if there are things transpiring in your life at the moment that are creating some sort of mental exhaustion, because you've got a lot of things going on, you've got a lot of deadlines, you've got a lot of responsibilities, there's a fair bit of stress in your life at the moment, there's a fair few demands. Mercury connects to the central nervous system in the body, as I said, because it's a ruler of Virgo as well, and Virgo's sixth house connects to the physical body in terms of the inner systems of the body. So there can be this nervous, anxious sort of energy going on as well at the moment. Okay, so just know that it's dissipating. It will in a couple of days' time, and it will pass. And when Mercury ingresses into Aries, then we are going to be in a position where our mind is just going to be fully focused, direct, transparent, ready to charge, ready to go, ready to make some really clear, solid decisions. And I'll come back with another video about Mercury ingressing into the sign of Aries, because in esoteric astrology, Mercury is the ruler of Aries. So it's a very special ingress, and I want to share quite a few things about that. So I'll leave it here. It was just a very quick update today. I felt inspired to share some thoughts, and just, I know I have done a video on Mercury conjunct Pallas Athena, which was just a few weeks ago, but this Mercury Neptune conjunction is active right now. So if you're feeling any of those things that I mentioned, this is the reason why. So just let these few days go past before you make any concrete sort of decisions. Okay, much love and blessings. And I will say it. The next class is going to be in April. It will be around about the first week of April. I apologize for the delays, but it's coming up soon. Thank you for your patience, and thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and support my work. I give my time freely here to you guys, and I love doing that. But I love hearing back from you guys as well, and I love it when you guys engage and share your comments and thoughts. It's all appreciated. Much love, and see you soon. Bye.